I'm trying to keep the average water bill as low as possible. But for those people that are abusing the system, and we do have people that abuse the system, I want their water rates to be very high. I'm not like, they are abusing the system and they should pay for the abuse that they're causing to the system. So what we've come out with these new homes that we're building now today, we went to the home builders and says, I will charge you a lower impact fee. So if you're building a new home, the impact fee on that home is going to be $5,000 less than I could charge. But you're agreeing for that new home that if you stay under a certain allotment of water, your water bill will be cheap. But if you hit a certain threshold, you're going to be paying some of the highest water rates in the state of Utah. And so,
but isn't that giving a benefit to the builder, but the consumer, the end user is the one that's getting the punishment for the overuse of the water? Is that
as long as if they use the average amount of water, they will be fine.
Okay.
If they abuse the system, they will pay.
Okay.
And basically, so they get allotment of water, which is a very generous allotment of water. Like you could have 9.
So if I was a builder, though, why would I just? I'm going to take the 5,000, say that I'm going to, put in a house that's going to be, use less water, but ultimately I'm not going to be the one using the water, so it's going to be on the person who buys the house, and then the builder just walks away and takes their $5,000. Well, is that kind of
the builders are claiming? Their statement is that we will charge $5,000 less for that home. Now, whether they do or not,
that's a good point.
That's up to them. But they say that when I charge an impact fee, they just take that impact fee and put it directly on the home that they sell,
right?
Or the commercial business. So they're like, if you keep our impact fees lower, it's going to keep the house lower in cost. But then the other thing is I need to know how much that home is going to use moving forward to make sure we can continue to build. And so we basically came up with a scenario of like, okay, let's keep our water bills really low, and we'll have this scenario go through. And you get your allotment of water. And like I said, you can still have lawn. You can still have a really big family. You could have easily a family of 10 and not hit these thresholds. But once you do, then it's going to go up a lot.
Yeah.
So your water bill will go from like $5 per 1,000 gallons to like $15 per 1,000 gallons.
Oh, wow.
And the key is like, okay, if you have a weekend or a week where you have a lot of family members, it might cost you, an extra $20 or something like that. But there's something else is going on when you start hitting these thresholds. The other thing that we did to make sure these homes were built that way, we reached out to the cities and said, to keep people in these thresholds, we need an ordinance that basically says this is the landscape ordinance. So we don't want the city to require something that would automatically push people into these levels.
Yeah.
So the home builders came back and says, well, we want these new landscape ordinances to make it so we're building the homes this way, so we don't have some bad players in there.
Yeah.
And so the cities have all passed landscape ordinances now, basically saying if you're going to build a home, it needs to meet these standards the day it's built. And if you just keep the standards, you're going to be fine. You're going to pay some of the lowest water rates ever.
Yeah.
And the reason why we did that is, we of course, the conservation pricing, it's called the price elasticity of water. We spent 2 years looking at that. We looked at our impact fees, how to lower them because we want to keep affordable housing. And so we just looked at all these different dynamics on how to keep water cheap in Washington County. And one of the problems that we kept on going on is when we look at that high 20% users, in my opinion, basically those 20% of users are using a lot of water. The rest of the community is subsidizing their water. And I don't think that's fair.
Right.
The people that are abusing it are being subsidized. Doesn't make sense. And this system will flip that.
Okay.
And basically now saying, okay, if you conserve water, you're going to be paying low water fees. But if you're going to abuse it, you're going to pay for that.
You're going to pay for it.
And the reason why is we take averages.
Yeah.
And so like our average water bill or our average impact fee was based on the average. And so if you have 20%, it's not working. So right now, 40% of our entire culinary system is being used by about 15% of the people.
Oh, wow.
And so we just have this really...
And these are just normal houses. These are just like
Well, we have a couple of... There's a couple of mansions out there.
Yeah. Just a few.
That was going to be my question, Zach.
Yeah.
Is this... Are these golf courses? Are these people with huge pools? Or like where's it coming from?
So it's generally people that have massive landscaping. And so we have people that have acres of grass in their backyard. And we want to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Or we do have a couple businesses. So we have a business that's using an astronomical amount of water. And we reach out to them and we said, listen, right now you're using culinary drinking water for your business practices. can we switch? Like
I'm going to guess the Tonnequin data center.
I'm not going to, I don't thrash people, but we reached out to him and we says, hey, we think we have a scenario where you could use this other water and still achieve, this is water we can't drink, but you could still achieve your business practice and use this water. And they basically said no. They're like, it's cheaper to use the culinary water than do this other option.
Right.
Well,
for now.
But and what's happening is everybody else is subsidizing the water rates or their water.
I said Tonnequin data center popped into my head just because I was just reading an article just about how like water cooling systems and some of these things that are required in some of these competing things. So that was the only reason it popped in my head. I don't know if it's them or not.
So it's called evaporative cooling.
Yeah.
And so like Phoenix has outlawed it now. Nevada has outlawed it. And you don't need evaporative cooling for a data center. It's just cheaper.
Yeah.
And with water being a precious thing in our area, a lot of municipalities are saying, no, we're not going to subsidize that because you can still have a data center and run it off just regular AC and be fine. You'll just pay a little bit more in electric bills than you would in the water bills.
Well, taking a step back, the impact fees. So I've talked to a few members of the Southern Utah Home Builders Association, and their feeling was that the impact fees are overtaxing that development fee because they're priced per door. And so if you wanted to do a higher density project, as a project goes, if you were to put that same, take that same acreage, make them single family homes, they'd use more water than as if you were to put double the units, but have smaller units. So instead of looking at it as a per dwelling impact fee, they're advocating for some kind of a scaled impact fee. Is that something that you guys have been in the conversation about, or maybe help me see the other side as to why it doesn't quite work that way?
No. So we do that. So if like you're building townhomes, your impact fee would be almost half.
Okay.
And so we do try to scale it. Where we struggle with scaling, so townhomes are actually fairly easy because we know a townhome we use almost about half the water of a regular home. And then we also do some things with landscaping with townhomes. Apartment complex actually is where we've really struggled. And the tough thing is a builder will come in and say, okay, we're building this apartment complex. And when we look at the data, we're like, okay, a studio apartment where you have like one bathroom, maybe two people living there it's not a lot of water, it just isn't. But then you have some apartments where they have like 4 bedrooms with 4 bathrooms, and they use, almost the same amount of water as a townhome. And so one of the things that we're doing and updating our impact fee is actually we're going in and we're trying to look at those water uses and try to be fair with people, especially with apartment complexes. I bring that up because that's one we just really struggle with. Yeah. And also businesses is very, very difficult. And so like if you build a mattress warehouse or a mattress store, I mean, they hardly use any water.
Yeah.
But what we struggle with is, okay, you have a mattress store, and then all of a sudden it changes to like a fast food joint that uses quite a bit of water.
Right.
And that business is also we really struggle with. So we're trying to dial that one in too.
Yeah, as far as how, because the idea, I hear this a lot, is that we want development to pay for itself. Yeah. And that's where it's like, well, the impact fee has to try to help with the infrastructure projects. And it seems like we've always been behind. It's I think the state just passed, I think this last year, it was like $600 million toward water infrastructure for specifically Washington County.
So we got several millions of dollars. And so that's part of my job is going up and trying to get funds to come to our area. So we actually received just flat out, here's $15 million. Like you just take it and spend it, and that's what we're spending. And then we got about another $15 million for some other projects. So about $30 million roughly in money that we're applying. And so when I get that money, that instantly reduces our impact fees. And so we also got $200 million, which is, it's basically a loan, but it's like the best loan rates you could ever want, like 50-year loan repayment, the lowest interest rate you could ever imagine. We don't have to pay any interest while we're building it. And so to me, that's millions of dollars too. And then we're actually also going after some very large federal grants. The one that I'm really going after is it's $150 million. And so I'm spending a lot of time trying to get that. And so if I get that, then I know I can keep our impact fees low.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it really is a I totally 100% recognize the impact fee is an impediment to affordable housing or attainable housing.
Yeah. Well, and then also just thinking about, as a long term is that infrastructure piece, right? And that goes into this plan is there's these massive infrastructure projects that are very expensive and they do take a lot of time. They employ people, which is great, but at the same time, you got to have the cash to be able to go do those things. So the Toker Reservoir as a whole, like what's kind of a project like that? How much does that cost?
Well, and we go between 90 and 60.
Okay.
Because if you include certain pipelines, then it's up there. But basically, that's a $90 million project. And so where we get that money is most of that comes from impact fees. We do collect some property tax, and we do collect some rates for the people that'll be using that water. And so that's just what's tough is it's just expensive. And as home prices have gone up, inflation, we've been pounded with that just like everybody else. And so, boy, this inflation has been tricky for us because we would have.
You could run a 20-year projection, but you're like the cost of doing some of these projects, it's almost impossible to actually pinpoint.
Yeah, I mean price so we use C900 PVC. Anyways,
super special PVC pipe.
Yeah, basically C900 pipe. So that pipe tripled in price like within a matter of 6 months. And so of course we like why. Yeah. Well, it goes back to this chlorine plant that caught on fire. And so we look at the whole supply chain of how can we fix this or how can we do it and stuff like that, do it cheaper. And that's been the tricky part too, is a lot of that. But it's just expensive. I mean, the Warner Valley Reservoir that we want to build, that's a $150 million project.
Yeah, and that's massive.
Yeah.
And that where would this fit on that this timeline here?
So you're looking almost like in the 2030 range.
Yeah, 2030 plus, 2035 maybe?
Yeah, around that period of time and stuff. So one nice thing about this plan is we will not build things unless we need it. Okay. And so I'm basically assuming in this plan, we're going to have a healthy rate of growth around like between 3 to 2% every year. But let's say the economy slows down or something happens where we don't have people moving here, then on this plan, I can easily take things or delay projects and not build them. Like I don't want to just build something and have it sitting there. We will only build it as it's needed. And so that's what's kind of nice about a scalable plan like this too.